The gap is closing between those two major parties. Is the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, done enough to hang on, or are we going to be having our, I think it's 8th Prime Minister in 12 years come Sunday morning?
I think we will have a new Prime Minister come Sunday morning. I say that with a qualifier that, all bets are off when you actually get to election day. But while the polls are closing, they're not closing that much. Certainly not enough to guarantee a win to the government. Remembering they actually started behind, having lost a number of their MPs to independents.
Well, it's important to remember here, the political system in Australia, it's a first past the post system. You have to win seats, and the coalition, being a minority, unusually for an incumbent, is going to have to win seats. Now, that's a pretty tough ask, isn't it?
That's exactly right, and that's the problem that they're facing, is that they start behind, as it were, as does the Labor Party. But the two of them have battled it out for all these weeks now, 3 weeks. We're getting to the very end of the election campaign. I think Labor has done more than enough. They've certainly announced policies. They had the Liberal Party talking about their policies. That's the Labor Party policies, and not the Liberal policies or the Liberal track record, which is in some respects a little unusual.
Of course, one of those policies has been on housing, with affordability being a flashpoint in the campaign. This GTV chart on the Bloomberg showing how it's been pressured when it comes to the property markets. Home prices have been falling. That's at the top panel. In the bottom panel, you can see residential property prices also in the red. So now that the market is down, how much reasoning is behind the government saying the Labour's plan could crash the values and derail the economy?
Well, the argument for a long time has been that we actually have a housing bubble. And so, in fact, we have inflated prices, and all we're doing is actually returning prices to, if you like, a reasonable or normal level, so that new home buyers, certainly first home buyers, can actually get into the market, which they haven't in many respects been able to for quite some time. And so we've seen prices certainly in Sydney and Melbourne, but also in Perth and some of the regional cities, skyrocket over the last decade. What we're now seeing is perhaps a retraction of some of the policies that brought about that bubble. Yes, that means that some house prices will fall, but overall it's probably better in the long term for the market.
So what can we gauge at the moment from Labour's campaign on how they will manage the economy? And what can we gauge when it comes to the RBA monetary policy combined with fiscal policy?
Well, the Labor Party has promised quite a lot for voters, but at the same time, they've also been promising that they'll actually bring the budget back into surplus, as has Scott Morrison. But as he's actually been unable to do that, certainly as Prime Minister, and his predecessor Malcolm Turnbull and his predecessor Tony Abbott were never able to actually bring the budget back into surplus. Now, Chris Bowen, the Shadow Treasurer, has promised that he will actually do that. And so while we're seeing quite a few spending promises being made, we're also seeing quite a few saving promises being made as well. So the potential is that the Labor Party could actually manage the economy quite well.
Now, one of the other issues on that list that Sherry was pointing out to was climate change. Now, that's been a thorny one in Australia for a long time. Kevin Rudd got elected in 2011 with a mandate to act, and he didn't. Julia Gillard promised not to and did. Malcolm Turnbull got knifed by his own party more recently for trying to do something. Is this finally going to get cracked, this nut?
It will do if Bill Shorten is elected, absolutely. In fact, Malcolm Turnbull got knifed twice over it. For the first time by Tony Abbott, and then by Scott Morrison after he knifed Tony Abbott. And going, well, this is an interesting sort of phenomenon in Australian politics at the moment. But yes, climate change will actually be acted upon under a Shorten government. It won't be to the same extent under a coalition government, and certainly the coalition has tied itself up in knots around electric vehicles and been attacking electric vehicles, yet its own forecast suggests that Australia will take up electric vehicles in any case. Electric vehicles are only a small part. The other part, of course, is a shift in energy production. We've started to see people talk about, again, nuclear energy as well as renewable energy, but they're not talking about coal and fossil fuels. So we will start to see action. We had the Pacific Leaders Forum only the last couple of days actually suggest to Australia that they really had to pick up their game.